Yeah, he's
perfect. Good. Good to go. Good afternoon, all. We hope you've been enjoying and, more importantly, learning from the absolutely brilliant lineup of speakers and thought leaders today. We now venture into one of the most exciting arenas and topics of conversation across the globe. What is the future of energy and mobility? After over a century of petroleum dominance, the transportation sector is going through a radical transformation to meet demographic and economic growth without further damaging our fragile environment. New energy and mobility are the twin turbo engines that will lead this transformation. Most of the automobile OEMs across the globe are actively adapting to rapid advancements in technology, alternative fuels, automation, and digital solutions that create new mobility options and business models. While the technology and fuels that will move people and goods in the future remain uncertain, the future transportation systems will be more integrated with renewable energy, smart electric grids, smart buildings, and information ecosystems. And this will allow for greater opportunities to exploit these interconnections. But right now, there is a need to understand these overlaps and these interconnections deeply. Words like electric vehicles, lithium-ion batteries, charging infrastructure have captivated the youth. But what do they really mean? Where are we headed? What impact will it have on the youth? And more significantly, what impact will the youth have on the future of energy and mobility? To answer some of these questions today, it's a privilege to host stalwarts from the Amara Raja Group, Mr. Vijay Anand Samudra and Mr. Vikram Aditya Gurunani. Welcome to both of you.
Hello, Tarun. Very glad to be here on this platform.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Pleasure to have you at the Young Indians Conclave, the future. Ladies and gentlemen, the Amara Raja Group is one of India's fastest growing conglomerates, with revenue exceeding $1 billion with work across the globe. The group is anchored by a workforce of 14,000 plus people, working for 7 companies encompassing 16 businesses. And at the heart of all of this are its people. The group has a diversified presence in the automotive battery business, packaged foods and beverages, electronics product manufacturing, infrastructure, power system production, and fabrication of sheet metal products and fasteners. Talk about diversity and talk about being a conglomerate. The group is best known for its automotive battery brand Amaron, one of the largest selling automotive battery brands in India. Looking forward, that historical legacy is their future and the launch of their strategic initiative in compelling opportunity of energy and mobility domain. The prime focus is on capitalizing on the increasing adoption of electric mobility and sustainable energy solutions enabled by the tectonic shifts in technology and business models happening in these sectors globally. Through engaged employees, empowered teams, and collaborative leadership of Amara Raja, the organization is in a constant endeavor of making things better for the environment, the society, customers, suppliers, and importantly, the shareholders. The 2 people that we have on the panel from the group today, Mr. Vijay Anand Samudrala is the president of New Energy at Amara Raja Batteries Limited and a senior member of the Corporate Management Council at the Amara Raja Group. He joined the group way back in 1992 and has been a part of the group's growth story for well over 28 years, holding various positions in the organization in areas of business leadership, strategic planning, new business development, technology development, and so on. An active proponent of adoption of new and emerging technologies in the field of e-mobility, renewable energy, and advanced storage, Mr. Samudrala is also a National Council member of the Confederation of Indian Industry, the largest industry association in India. Armed with a BTech, MTech, and degree from Bangalore, Mr. Samudrala brings years of experience and expertise to our panel today. Very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And the young scion, the leader, Vikramaditya Gurineni, is one of the key transformation leaders in the Amrit Raja Group and currently holds the position of Executive Director, New Energy Business. He also holds several key board positions. Having joined the group in 2013 as a management executive, Vikram has been handling various functional responsibilities across businesses since then and has been a driving force behind the design, implementation of the growth strategy for these businesses and transforming them from mere ideas into key pillars of growth for the entire group. Vikram envisions a world powered by renewable energy and believes that the future mobility lies in electric vehicles. Committed to the same, he has overseen building up of the capacities for new energy and mobility space across the country and all around the globe. A graduate from the University of Wisconsin-Madison with a degree in biochemistry, Vikram brings his dynamism, drive, and transformational thinking to our discussion today. A very warm welcome to you, Vikram, as well. Welcome to the Young Indians Conclave, The Future.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
So let's start with the basics. We have an entire lot of students waiting to hear from you. But let's take the building blocks one by one. So what are lithium-ion batteries? How are they different from our conventional battery packs we are used to? And why are they so much in use and why the future going forward? If you could just break down the essence of this, helps build an understanding for the audience. Yeah.
Sure. So when you look at lithium-ion battery versus a lead-acid battery, any other, I think what they have in common is that they both have anode, cathode. They both go through some sort of electrochemical reaction, but there's very few commonalities that, especially from a manufacturer's point of view, thereafter. The lead-acid battery, I think, or better, over many years has been what we call in today's parlance a dumb battery. It's more or less you just plug and play it. It's very rugged. It's filled with a liquid electrolyte, and it can play a key role in a variety of applications. But when it comes to lithium, we see not just the roles that it's competing with lead acid, but there's also new applications in which there's a lot of limitations in the lead acid battery chemistry. To start with, lead acid battery chemistry is a little bit constrained when it comes to extremely high power discharge, which would be required for applications like e-mobility or any mobility applications for that matter. And the cycling of the lead acid battery, it's not quite, when you hear people now talk about thousands of cycles on a lithium battery, the lead acid battery doesn't hold up quite as well with those kind of applications. But at the same time, there are a lot of complexities that now come into a typical lithium-ion battery. Whereas I said earlier, a lead-acid battery was more dumb. You didn't require any sort of specialized software or any sort of specialized controls. When it comes to a lithium battery, you need to have a battery management system, a control software that tells it exactly how to charge, how to discharge. It monitors a variety of parameters like cell voltages, state of charge, state of health, etc. But with all these added complexities also comes the ability to use battery in a pretty new and imaginative ways, which weren't possible earlier, I would say.
Interesting. So while in chemistry, we've understood it has a diverse set of applications and obviously improved performance. What are some of these factors? We call this disruptive change. We are on the cusp of disruptive change when it comes to energy efficiency, electric vehicles, storage devices, etc. Right? So what are the driving factors for these, emerging changes in the energy and mobility arena?
Vijay, would you want to take that?
Yeah. Tarun, thanks a lot for setting up the context and with that very nice introduction about both the company and Vikram and myself. I think we got to see this in the larger domain of energy as a space. We've conventionally known to generate energy from hydrocarbon resources, and that leads to emission of carbon-related pollutants into the atmosphere, and hence we were worried about increasing, the climatic challenges that the world is facing at large. And over the last at least 2 decades, the conversation around clean energy as an approach has been significant. And that's coming not just from the energy, large bulk consumers of energy, but also on the transportation sector, because transportation sector consumes bulk of the energy resources around the globe. So the disruption or transformation that you are talking about is spread across the value chain of the energy. You talk about energy generation, you talk about energy transmission, energy distribution, and then the energy conversion, because you consume energy at different voltage levels, at different AC voltage, DC voltage, and then you also talk about now prominently energy storage. So you're talking about generation, transmission, distribution, conversion, and storage. And now when you look at the clean energy spectrum or the clean energy canvas, the generation is moving into natural sources of energy like sun, wind, the hydro, mini hydro or medium hydro systems. And you also look at how that energy that's generated is harnessed, because when you are running a traditional thermal power plant or a nuclear power plant, you are able to control the amount of energy generated based on fuels that are consumed during the entire 24/7. But the moment you switch to clean energy sources, there is this intermittency factor that comes in, and that's forcing you to figure out, how am I going to have access to energy when it is not available in the natural sources because of the intermittency? And that's where energy storage is becoming very critical. And Vikram did talk about energy storage, lead acid being a workhorse of energy storage for many years, but that was more when you needed that energy when grid is not able to supply, or when you need that for specific purposes like starting, lighting, and ignition in a IC engine vehicle. The disruption that you talked about now is about, can I move away from the conventional hydrocarbon source of energy into more clean energy based sources? Can I have the IC engine vehicle move into electric vehicle, which means you are now the propulsion system is working on a stored energy mounted on a vehicle, and there is absolutely no emissions that are coming from it. And within that space is where I think a lot of work is being done. All of us cannot ignore Elon Musk for what he has contributed to the electric mobility and brought a glamour to the word called battery. Battery is something that was inside a black box earlier, and you mostly ignore it till it fails to perform what it is supposed to do. And people recognize the presence of a battery more when it doesn't work rather than when it works. That was how it was taken for granted in the past. But thanks to the way electric mobility is picking up, thanks to the way the renewable energy is growing, I think battery as a device for storing energy is becoming extremely important. And there are exciting chemistries that are being talked about in that, lithium being one of those most talked about chemistry right now. And then, like Vikram rightly said, the electrochemistry portion of the battery is now getting married to digital technologies around that, is getting married to controllers, is getting married to the systems that are around it, whether the vehicle control system or whether it is the energy evacuation system. And on top of it, data analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, many things are being juxtaposed to ensure that you get the best out of a battery and you get it at the lowest cost.
Interesting. So we get the need. We get very, very critically, you pointed about the difference from generation till storage. You go through so many steps of this. I would like to bring Vikram in at this point of time, because we talk about where your group is headed, and you are one of the key driving factors behind that. Recently, you spoke about your energy and mobility strategy in June that you've devised, right? So could you shed some light on that, how that integrates with what we've spoken? But more critically, I'll add one more point of context, how that shapes the future of India. Because that's what we are all building towards, that's what we are a part of, so right? So how does your strategy integrate with the ecosystem at large, creating a positive footprint for India at whole? Yeah.
I'd love to answer that question. If I can just maybe go back just a few months for about a minute. I think the real, the impetus for us to start assessing a strategic pivot to look in a different way of doing things, I think COVID made everybody ask a lot of questions. So soon after the first wave, many of our senior leadership, we sat down, we said, okay, guys, these are all the businesses we're in today. And you mentioned them and you said it's very diverse. but actually we sat down as a management, as promoters to say, are we too diverse today? Do we need to do something a little bit different? And I think what we really wanted to do is we wanted to choose, there's a variety of factors we looked at. We looked at exactly as you said, what does the nation need today? What is the real need, the compelling like markets that are going to be created for the country? What is it that we're already good at? And what is it that's gonna make us get up in the morning and really want to do this? So almost like an ikigai moment, in which we decided that we love battery, we're good at battery, but we need to be more than just battery. So we started to put together all the different areas in which we can use our strength in battery, what we can move towards. And what we started seeing was that battery is a part of what's happening in the future of this energy space, of this future mobility space. But if we go only as a battery manufacturer, it's not going to solve the entire problem. I think if we put 1 million EVs on the road today in India, but we don't find a way to charge them in a clean manner, we're gonna add to the problem. We're not going to fix anything. At the same time, if we add this huge amount of clean renewable generation, but we don't have a way to actually use it to its peak, right? We're only solving parts of the problem. So we started saying, okay, we need to come at this from all directions. We need to be very holistic about this. And that's where energy and mobility was born. We did assess, various parts of the value chain where we'd want to come in. We looked at making, renewable equipment like solar panels and wind turbines, all the different things. But I think where we finally decided is where we want to be part of the bigger solution. We want to start integrating a lot of these things. We do have to, be clear that we are specialists in battery. So that's where we'll start. But going forward, we're not going to limit ourselves to just that. We want to really be part of the entire solution. If we can help set up EV charging infrastructure, we have a fantastic power electronics team that's working on that right now. But unless we're ensuring that the generation source is also green, that the generation source is also clean, I think we just want to make sure that we're being responsible stewards of this technology and not creating further problems that future generations will have to solve.
That's an interesting approach because on the face of it, like you rightly said, people take renewable energy to be that kind of panacea. It shall resolve all of the problems, but there are elements attached to it. There are ways and means and things you have to take care of. And you've zeroed in on a particular problem, a particular proposition that you wish to resolve and add value to it, and thereby to the ecosystem at large. So we've gotten the basics. We understood batteries. We've understood why this. Now let's start talking about its application and the application that will excite our audiences the maximum today. Electric vehicles, in all their forms, in the Teslas, the Ola Electrics, Hero Energies, we see so many of these coming in. 4-wheelers, 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers. So why so bullish on EVs? Again, electric vehicles in particular. Where do you think we are placed right now? And where are we headed in terms of its adoption? Do we see some challenges? Do we see some opportunities? Is this a bubble that's been created but will take about 5 years to actually come to commercialization? But now let's just talk electric vehicles. Yeah.
So when it comes to EV, I think we need to, break it up into the different segments. Most people, when they talk about EV, of course, Tesla is the first one, and rightfully so, because they've been talking about the longest. And I would say one bright spot I think is that India is talking about this electric mobility as a national mission. And even if you go back to the United States, where I grew up today, Tesla is still talking about it. Tesla is the only one still really, really pushing it. And while a few people are starting to come awake, I would say the government is far from supporting it. Maybe the new Biden administration is now starting to wake up to it, but I don't see anywhere near the national push that this government in India is giving us to really go and pursue this. Now, when we look at the different vehicle segments, if we put the 4-wheeler passenger vehicle aside, because there, I think there are more challenges to overcome, but especially when you look at 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler, both from a customer point of view, the market push, there's a variety of anxieties that anybody will have when they're first buying an electric vehicle. I think we'll have an anxiety, and is this going to perform as well as my traditional IC engine vehicle? What's the range? What's the infrastructure? And what's the safety? So there's a bunch of anxieties that people have, but I think that the industry and global players have done a fantastic job over the last couple of years in really bringing that down. And I think if you ask many people now, in the most recent customer surveys we've seen, the major anxiety is just that there's not enough options in India. I think many people are willing to make that jump, especially two-wheeler, three-wheeler, where the cost parity to ownership, total cost of ownership is already at parity. I think there's many options. When you look at some of the market drivers in India, it was already happening, massive push in digitalization, massive push in e-commerce, but with COVID, it's even gotten faster. So you have this extreme growth in this hyper local delivery. You have the last mile delivery that's happening. I think all of us live on Swiggy and Zomato and a bunch of variety of services that are delivered to the home. There, where you already have ready-made fleets that can go electric, I think it's a no-brainer and it's very easy to do so. So we see that probably in 5 years, you'll see significant adoption in two-wheeler and three-wheeler segment, especially those vehicles that are anchored to this segment of logistics, hyper-local logistics. And over 10 years, maybe it's going to be a little bit slower on the passenger vehicle. But I don't think this is a one-way ticket. Once you start electrifying, you don't go back, right? We're not going to take a back step on it. So I'm looking forward, I think even at a 10 to 15% kind of adoption, very conservatively speaking, in 10 years, it's a huge market that opens up.
Absolutely. So this adoption, we have a lot of college students in the audience today. Almost the entirety of the audience is college students. They're probably on the cusp of purchasing their first two-wheelers, getting out and first jobs. So what are the things that one would look at? Because in India, purchasing an automotive is a very emotional experience as well. Even if it's first bike, if it's your first scooter, we've kept cars out of the picture for now. So what are the things that one should look at, parameters wise, if you were to suggest as an expert in this industry that, okay, guys, when you go out, look for an electric scooter, please look at these things. This is just a general information for the audience today, so that they are not misguided by any of the other news that they probably see. We want to hear it from the horse's mouth.
I will give a few thoughts. I would invite Vijay after this because I think I have to give with a pinch of salt. I didn't grow up in a two-wheeler country, so I've never been a bike rider myself, but I can at least say from, just a customer point of view, logical point of view, I think a few things are a little bit overblown, and we feel that one of those things is range. If you're going to be, just driving around in the city, you have to really look at, as a private owner of a vehicle, how far are you going to go per day? And base that. And keep in mind, if you're not going to drive hundreds of kilometers in a day, I think we shouldn't be worried about batteries that deliver hundreds of kilometers of range, because anyways, you're gonna go to sleep at some point. You're gonna sit down. You're gonna not be using the vehicle for a significant period of time, and it can be uncharged during that time. When it comes to things like performance, I think I'm a more pragmatic person. If it gets me to point A to point B, and it gets me there safely, I'm not looking at only speed and all sorts of things. But I would say that things like brand, I don't necessarily rank quite as high, because you're going from an IC engine to an electric vehicle. The same way a lead acid to a lithium ion is like a night and day difference. Everybody's new to this space, so nobody has that established brand. So even an established player, well, definitely they have resources and all. I don't think that you can necessarily assume just because they did it so well in one segment that the new segment they're going to be equally good. So I would say that I wouldn't put my focus on the range. I'd put my focus on, can it deliver what it needs to do for me? If you're just a college student and maximum you're going 20 to 30 kilometers, 50 kilometers a day, I don't think you need to talk about massive capacity of battery pack. Vijay, maybe you want to add some thoughts?
Yep. Thanks, Vikram. I think they're very relevant points that you talked about. I want to bring the perspective of a technical assessment as to what's the right electric bike versus, like you said, the experience of buying a vehicle. At the age group where students are considering to buy, probably this is the first time ownership of a vehicle that they would be making a decision not made by their parents. So they would like to have that experience of choosing what's the, a feel-good factor. There are two issues here. Asset ownership versus pay-per-use business model also need to be looked at. Do we see pay-per-use kind of vehicle choices being available where you're able to still move from point A to point B without necessarily owning the asset? We heard about businesses by Bounce and others who allow you to still use a two-wheeler without really owning it. I think it's in the nascent stage, but I see there is a significant innovation possibility there. The second one is something that you own. And I think while performance is one of the criteria that you should be looking at, when I say performance, the functionality is one of the criteria that you look at. I think there is also a sense of feel-good part of ownership. This is where I feel that the Indian market need probably a Tesla version of a two-wheeler to be able to popularize EV adoption much more, and create that aspiration, and not just saying that I would like to own an electric vehicle because I don't want to pollute the community or society around me. So that's more of a social responsibility. But when I do that, do I really own something that I feel good about? We work with a lot of OEMs, so I don't want to make any specific brand recommendations here. But I'm really looking forward to quite a few exciting offerings of the product being made available there. But let's keep in mind, I think Vikram is on the dot when he said, don't look for long range, because a typical two-wheeler user in India doesn't put more than 40, 50 kilometers per day as a usage. And if a two-wheeler can be charged overnight, and it can be very easily without any massive infrastructure there, you're ready to use it again tomorrow. It's very occasional that you may want to ride a two-wheeler for an outstation visit. That's where you need to be a little careful. But otherwise, I think EV adoption is the easiest. Those are simple machines, don't have the complexity, and just go for a product that's reliable.
Interesting. Very pertinent point, between functionality and the desire to have something more. And EVs in functionality aspect will deliver. So to the audience, you know what you have to look for when you go out and purchase your next two-wheeler. Keep that in mind, because that's absolutely critical. To the youth today, we've spoken about the absolutely phenomenal future this entire field and spectrum has, right? How do they get involved in this? How do they generate and learn the skills that could probably lead to employability, or even from the side and aspects of entrepreneurship? What are some of the career-focused opportunities that you see in these fields that the youth should target right now? You mentioned 5 years for public transport, 10 years for passengers, right? So we are looking at a very, very long cycle. And that's when these the audience that we have today will be at their peak productivity. So, so how do you think they can enter fields such as this? Where can they acquire and learn the necessary skills so that they are at the right place at the right time and can take benefit of it? Yeah.
I think number one, I would say there's a infinite opportunity in this space, and you can look from a couple different angles. Number one, we've been talking about all the digital options that are coming up, digitalizations that are coming to the industry. A lot of the startups that are going to get a lot of funding, they're going to be doing pure business model innovation. They're going to be taking ready-made hardware and vehicles that others are making, batteries others are making, and they're just going to put a new spin on it. I think there's going to be so many people who try to bring in maybe a clean energy aspect to it, hardware as a service. Bounce has done it with the vehicle, and there's other people who are talking about doing it with just the battery. I think anybody who's creative, the tools and the necessary know-how can be easily acquired. Nowadays, with just so much free education on the internet, and even stuff that you can pay, I don't necessarily feel that all of the education, pertinent education, is only going to come from college campuses. I think if one of the many things this pandemic has taught us is go online and see all what people are offering, and that there's a bunch of options out there. But I would say that as people who are heart and souls in manufacturing, I would hope that enough of the youth is spending their time really trying to get back into hardware, because the sheer amount of material innovation that'll be required and the possibility to do it in India are immense. I think if you look at really the countries where the talent is coming from, that are working on things like material science, that are working on real core R&D and innovation, even if it's not happening in India, it's happening by Indians all over the world. And I think it would be a shame if we don't take advantage of that and really start from hopefully starting at a high school level, driving it down to universities, and really encouraging people to get into the hardware space, the material side of things. Vijay, would you want to add something?
Yeah, Vikram, I think the demand for talent and skill in the EV and the renewable space is going to exponentially grow. As you know, some of my HR colleagues say, certain talents, if people have, we consider as trespassers will be recruited. That's the kind of hunger for talent that's there, and as I see over the next few years, the digital competency and the hardcore, the hardware and the core engineering competency is going to have a convergence, considering the control systems that are required in the vehicles. As we get into passenger vehicle, that becomes a little bit more complicated. And, from Amaraja perspective, we believe that India as a country has missed the magic of manufacturing when it comes to consumer electronics. I think we are trying to catch up, has missed the magic of manufacturing when it comes to renewable energy capital equipment, whether it's the solar panels or inverters or many other things. I think we can't afford to miss the magic of manufacturing when it comes to the supply chain components involved in the electric vehicles. And as we go forward, more and more energy related technologies. I think this is where a right kind of skill in the materials that Vikram talked about, a right kind of skill in the hardware development, right kind of skill in the electric powertrain design, right kind of skill in the control systems that govern the vehicle performance. These are going to be hot requirements as we go along. And as I speak to you, just take the lithium cell manufacturing in Europe over the next 10 years. There's going to be something like 1,000 gigawatt hours of capacity that's getting added. And if those who are active on LinkedIn and follow some of the European companies that are putting the lithium cells, you see desperateness in them in terms of getting the right people. And that's the kind of talent war that is likely to come. So I would encourage all the people here to be focused and understand the skill requirements that are critical here, and tune themselves into the future is really bright. And if India has to have its place in the global supply chain for EV related alone, and then there are other things that are associated with energy, the demand for this talent is going to be really, really hot.
If I can just interject once more, I would say one thing that I really want to just stress today is that it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution. Now, everyone talks about lithium. It's being talked as the predominant commercial technology today. But I think that for different vehicle applications, different energy applications, any number of technologies is going to play side by side in a it's going to be, you may have certain applications like very long duration energy storage that can be a completely different solution. You may have between even just two-wheelers and four-wheelers and buses having different applications. So I think it's nobody should kind of count themselves out because they're not working on lithium specifically or any big commercial technology. There's going to be a huge scope. Lead acid battery lasted for over 100 years. I don't think lithium is going to last anywhere near that. I think there's going to be pace of change happening a lot faster. So I think people should take that risk and they should see if they can come up with something new, because there's going to be a lot of innovation and there's going to be space for a lot of different technologies to play side by side.
Absolutely. Technology, technology today is obsolete tomorrow. So, we are in that phase right now. So to the youth, that's a massive call to action, Be at the right place. There are immense sources where you can gain your knowledge from. There is actually a lot of opportunities that you can take part in from the hardware side to development. Vikram, last question as we wrap up. As a young change maker, I'll just have a couple of minutes or a minute of you on this. What is it that keeps you going? What is it that drives you? What is your motivating factor? Because that is what will resonate with the entire audience today. So just a minute on that as we wrap up.
Not to repeat too much, but I think we're very fortunate that an industry that we've kind of stuck around in for a long period of time is now becoming centerpiece. It's becoming centerpiece in multiple national missions. I think it's part of that drive to bring clean energy. It's part of that drive to bring electric mobility. But I think whatever it is, if you're able to, find a solution for a problem that the country or the larger society requires, I think that's very exciting. If we can do anything to really drive that change, and we being a country of more than 1 billion people, I think the impact is felt much greater. So that's something that definitely gives me a great deal of inspiration. If you put aside the exact industry we're in also, I think just the sheer amount of flexibility and the sheer amount of the change that's happening, even in something as simple as the corporate structure. I think we're moving away from these very rigid organization charts and very hierarchy-driven approaches. I think any student should definitely not sell themselves short. What Vijay said is very apt. It's a battle for talent. We're going to be fighting for you, so don't sell yourself short. Bring the skills, keep skilling yourselves, come for the job, but also demand your place in the decision making. I think you shouldn't come and it's not going to be all about sir and madam and what would you like me to do. I think we'll want you to involve yourself a lot more deeply the day you join the company. We want people who are driven, who want to accomplish things. So I think it's a fantastic time to be a youth in India and join the workforce. You're going to be highly, highly valued. And I was just say, please stay in India, work in India, and work for India.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you so much, Vikram. To students, to the audience, you could have asked for more. An absolutely phenomenal call to action. Don't sell yourself short. You are a part of the positive rebellion that I recently picked up from Mrs. Samudrala. And let's go out and do it. Thank you so much, Mrs. Samudrala, Vikram, for having joined us this afternoon. It was a thoroughly engaging session. You know, we were able to touch upon a few things. Hopefully, the students have picked up. They know where can they be involved with going forward into the future and be a part of this extremely exciting field, which is energy and mobility. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been a privilege.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Vikram.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Yeah. Sessions across India, across the 55 city chapters continue in the afternoon. So chapter specific sessions continue. Everyone else, we reconvene on this platform at 4:15 p.m. That's right, Dave? Yes. Right. We reconvene at 4:15 for a fabulous session on geopolitics by Mr. Kunal Verma. If you thought maths and milestones were something, be ready for what is about to come at 4:15. Thank you so much.